Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Essays on the Gita, with our beloved Ranga. We are on Chapter 3, The Human Disciple. I have it on page 25, but it may be different in different editions. We begin with the sentence, "The character of this inner crisis."
I will read the whole paragraph first, and then we come back to each sentence. The character of this inner crisis is therefore not the questioning of the thinker. Not the questioning of the thinker. It is not a recoil from the appearances of life and a turning of the eye inward in search of the truth of things, the real meaning of existence, and a solution or an escape from the dark riddle of the world. It is the sensational, emotional, and moral revolt of the man hitherto satisfied with action and its current standards, who finds himself cast by them into a hideous chaos where they are in violent conflict with each other and with themselves, and there is no moral standing ground left, nothing to lay hold of and walk by, no dharma. That for the soul of action in the mental being is the worst possible crisis, failure and overthrow. The revolt itself is the most elemental and simple possible. Sensationally, the elemental feeling of horror, pity, and disgust. Vitally, the loss of attraction and faith in the recognized and familiar objects of action and aims of life. Emotionally, the recoil of the ordinary feelings of social man, affection, reverence, desire of a common happiness and satisfaction, from a stern duty outraging them all. Morally, the elementary sense of sin and hell and rejection of blood-stained enjoyments. Practically, the sense that the standards of action have led to a result which destroys the practical aims of action. But the whole upshot is that all-embracing inner bankruptcy which Arjuna expresses when he says that his whole conscious being, not the thought alone, but heart and vital desires and all, are utterly bewildered and can find nowhere the dharma, nowhere any valid law of action. For this alone, he takes refuge as a disciple with Krishna. Give me, he practically asks, that which I have lost, a true law, a clear rule of action, a path by which I can again confidently walk. He does not ask for the secret of life or of the world, the meaning and purpose of it all, but for a dharma. So, Sri Aurobindo is again and again stressing this point that the whole Gita describes and rather dealing with a question that is of practical importance in the world. It's not an intellectual question which only the thinkers are worried about, or those who are engaged in. They want to know the meaning of life. They want to know what is the reality. This is what they want to know by the mind. But Arjuna's question is not that at all. It's I have lost all my rules of living in the physical world. I want a practical solution. Sri Aurobindo goes on. In other words, it's a problem. The Gita solves a problem for every human being, at whatever level he is. That's what the importance of the Gita is. It's not only for the thinkers. So, the character of this inner crisis is therefore not the questioning of the thinker. So, it's a problem which the Gita is dealing with, which is applicable to everybody, even the most practical questions in the physical world, it is applicable. And here, what is the problem? It's not intellectual, but it is sensational, emotional, and moral revolt. That's what he's telling you. And he will describe what that is and how it has to be dealt with. It is not a recoil from the appearances of life and a turning of the eye inward in search of the truth of things, the real meaning of existence, and a solution or an escape from the dark riddle of this world. So Ranganath is very clearly saying it is not an intellectual problem that the Gita has to deal with. Okay? And what is the intellectual problem also he is telling you? He is telling you from the appearances of things. The appearances of things in the physical world, whatever you are seeing, is only appearance. I am seeing a stone. It is not the reality, because the stone is there one day, next day it may be destroyed. Okay? You are seeing human beings, you are seeing animals, but they will disappear one day. So these are only appearances. Behind every form, there is a permanent reality which you are not seeing. That's why it's an appearance. I am only seeing your body, I am only seeing your shirt, I am seeing your face, but I am not seeing your soul. That's the reality, but this is only an appearance. In fact, this appearance will go on changing not only every day, every minute it is changing. As soon as you breathe in, you have taken in something new into yourself. You are not the same as before. It is so obvious as that. Every time you drink water or you take in food, you are changing. I am making it very gross, but that's a fact. So these are all appearances. So one who thinks, if this is the appearances of things, what is the reality? How do I come to it? It's an intellectual problem. The Gita is not dealing with intellectual problems. Okay? It is not a recoil from the appearances of life and a turning of the eye inward in search of the truth of things, the real meaning of existence, and a solution or an escape from the dark riddle of this world. Now, what's the dark riddle of the world? If the divine has made the world, why on earth has he included suffering? Why has he included perversion? Why has he included falsehood? Why has he included death? If the divine has made this, how could he have done all this? That's a dark riddle of the world. So it's not a problem. Arjuna is not trying to solve the dark riddle of the world. He is just trying to find all my values have collapsed. I need a value by which I can confidently walk on the road of life. That's what he wants. It's a sensational, emotional, and practical solution that he wants, not an intellectual solution. Okay? It is the sensational, emotional, and moral revolt of the man, hitherto satisfied with action and its current standards, who finds himself cast by them into a hideous chaos where they are in violent conflict with each other and with themselves, and there is no moral standing ground left, nothing to lay hold of and walk by, no dharma. Okay? So, we'll look at the sentence, and then Sri Ranganath has given a footnote for dharma. We'll look at that also. So, it's a sensational problem. Sensation, physical, vital. Your nerves, the nerves carry the sensations. So there's an unpleasant sensation. In the Gita, actually, his body becomes feverish, he starts trembling, and his bow falls from his hand and falls to the ground and says, I will not fight. So it's a sensational. This is the Gita is very specific. He starts trembling. Okay?
But this seems so applicable to Orville and the ashram. I mean, it seems. Look at these lines.
Okay, yeah. So, emotional. So, sensational is physical vital, emotional is the higher vital, and finally, the moral revolt. Morality belongs to the mind. So he is describing it's a physical vital problem, it's an emotional problem, and also a mental problem morally. The rules of morality which I had believed in are now not valid anymore. So this is what. And each one Sri Aurobindo will describe. Okay? So, of the man, this is a revolt of the man, hitherto satisfied with action and its current standards, who finds himself cast by them into a hideous chaos where they are in violent conflict with each other. So, what are his values before that? The man hitherto satisfied with action. I am a Kshatriya, and the rules of Kshatriyahood say that I have to fight. It's my duty to fight, and fight those who are on the wrong side of things. Okay? So it's very clear. But now the problem is that those whom he considers good, whom he considers his own people, are fighting on the opposite side. There is a clash of values. I can fight an enemy. How can I fight a friend? My standard of conduct is being challenged. So there is confusion. My grandfather is there. My cousins are there. My uncles are there. Even my own teacher is there. Dronacharya. Even my teacher, the one who has taught me how to fight, he is there. How can I kill him? It goes against all the rules of the Kshatriya. That's a problem. Okay, so sensational, emotional, and moral result of the man, hitherto satisfied with action and his current standards, who finds himself cast by them into a hideous chaos where they are in violent conflict. I have to fight the enemy. But now the enemy has become my own people, my own family members. So the conflict is there. How can I fight with my own? They can't be my enemy. I have to fight my own people.
He says violent
Yes,
conflict.
that's right. Violent conflict with each other and with themselves. Okay? And there is no moral ground left standing. Nothing to lay hold of and walk by. No dharma. So now the word dharma, last time we had a brief discussion on that, but the word dharma comes from the Sanskrit root dhri, to hold. So, there is a dharma. Dharma is not religion as normally translated into English. It's not religion. It's not morality either. It is the rules by which each stage is governed.
By which each
stage of life is governed. There is an animal stage, there is a human stage, and there is a yogic stage. And each one, the dharma is different. Okay? So the Gita actually, in the last chapter, Sri Aurobindo explains what the Gita is telling to the ordinary man, not the intellectual man. But the one who is an intellectual man, what his dharma should be. And the spiritual man, what his dharma should be. Okay? So dharma is something that's the rules of conducting oneself. That's dharma. So, in fact, a little brief preview of what he says. The ordinary man should try to live by religious standards. He should not be engaged only in making money and having a family and building a house, and that's not. He should try to bring in some amount of religion. That would be his dharma. Okay? The one who is already religious, his dharma would be to graduate from a religious standpoint to a spiritual standpoint. And the dharma for the spiritual man, according to Sri Aurobindo, would be that don't get satisfied only with your own liberation, but try to help others also. That would be his dharma. So the dharma is going on changing at each level. That is dharma. Not duty or religion or morality. It's a very inclusive word.
And he has a footnote.
Yeah, the footnote is exactly that. Dharma means literally that which one lays hold of and which holds things together. The law, the norm, the rule of nature, action and life. A very wide definition. Okay? That for the soul of action in the mental being is the worst possible crisis, a failure and overthrow. So my dharma has gone. How am I going to conduct myself? I have no rule by which to conduct myself. My dharma was to be a Kshatriya, to fight the enemy and fight falsehood. But now my own people, those who are my friends and they are on the side of falsehood. The basis of my action is gone. I don't know what to do. I can't fight. So this is the problem. That for the soul of action. Note again, the soul of action. Not the soul of thought or the soul of spirit. The soul of action. Okay? Swamdev is so clear about it. The problem is for a man of action in the physical world. Gita is not a theoretical knowledge. It's a practical knowledge. Okay, so the revolt itself, now he is coming to the revolt in the mind, the revolt itself is the most elemental and simple possible. Elemental, very, very simple. Primary stage, elementary. You remember that in Sherlock Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes is, elementary, my dear Watson.
My dear Watson, yes.
He goes on saying, elementary, very, very simple. Okay, so elemental and simple possible. Sensationally, the elemental feeling of horror, pity, disgust, that also is very, very basic, because horror can come even to animals. Okay? Disgust also, but not pity perhaps. Pity can come from human beings. Okay, so this is the sensationally. Then what about vitally? The loss of attraction and faith in the recognized and familiar objects of action and aims of life. Usually in a man who is a vital man, his aim is to succeed in life and enjoy life. So vitally now, how can he enjoy killing his own people? He can't. So it's a emotional problem. It's a problem of morality, and finally he has the vitally the loss of attraction and faith in the recognized and familiar objects of action. Familiar mode of action would be to fight, but I am unable to fight now because I can't fight against my own people.
So a hedonistic man would want to enjoy life, and Arjuna would
want to do that. Yes, he would want to do that. But now he can't enjoy. Because the enjoyment that he will be getting are going to be blood-stained. So how can he be happy? That's what he's saying. Okay? Vitally, the loss of attraction and faith in the recognized and familiar objects of action and aims of life. Emotionally, the recoil from the ordinary feelings of social man. What are the feelings of ordinary social man? Love of family, love of friends, affection, reverence, desire of a common happiness and satisfaction, from a stern duty outraging them all. The stern duty is his duty to fight. That duty to fight is stern, and it is outraging all the other enjoyments of the normal man. It's an outrage. How can I enjoy when I have to do the opposite of what I have to do? Okay. Morally, the elementary sense of sin and hell and rejection of blood-stained enjoyments. This also is very simple, because elementary sense of sin and hell, because spiritually speaking, spiritual is not elementary, it's more complex. The idea of sin and hell, all this become more flexible and more diluted. It's not, in normal man, the idea of sin and virtue are very strong and very clear-cut. But when you go to the spiritual level, sin is not to be seen as sin, but wrong action, wrong attitude. Because you can do a sin, you can commit a sin even with the right attitude. That's possible. I can tell a lie with a good intention. I can even, if I am a Kshatriya, I can eliminate my enemy. I can even kill if I have to defend myself. But the inner attitude will change everything. So sin is a very elementary thing at the normal level. It's a very limited and crude way of seeing sin and virtue. Okay? Elementary sense of sin and hell and rejection of blood-stained enjoyments. Now he comes to the practical aspect. Practically, the sense of the standards of action, the sense that the standards of action have led to a result which destroys the practical aims of action. What are the practical aims of action? Enjoyment, success, okay, gathering of wealth. This is the normal aims of action. But now all these things only have become horribly disgusting to me. That's what he's saying. Okay? But the whole upshot is that all-embracing inner bankruptcy, which Arjuna expresses when he says that his whole conscious being, not the thought alone, but heart and vital desires and all, are utterly bewildered and can find nowhere the dharma, nowhere any valid law of action. He is now confused. All that I thought was my duty and my law of action, I can't do it anymore. That which I believed in now has turned out to be something which I cannot believe in. So how to do that? Okay. But note, Srimad is saying, all-embracing inner bankruptcy. So he has told you sensationally, vitally, emotionally, morally, practically. All-embracing. Right from the highest is mind, right up to the body level, there is a problem. There is an inner bankruptcy, which Arjuna expresses when he says that his whole conscious being, not the thought alone, but heart and vital and desires and all, are utterly bewildered and can find nowhere the dharma, nowhere any valid law of action. For this alone, because he doesn't have a valid law of action, for this alone, he takes refuge as a disciple with Krishna. Give me, he practically asks, that which I have lost, a true law, a clear rule of action, a path by which I can again confidently walk. He does not ask for the secret of life or of the world. Again, the stress. It's not a mental problem or a spiritual problem for him. It's the meaning and purpose of it all, but for a dharma. He is asking for a law of action. What should I do? Tell me. So, that's why those who read the essays on the Gita, Sri Aurobindo's exposition of the Gita is absolutely marvelous. They find it superb. All the hidden meanings in the Gita are brought out so beautifully by Sri Aurobindo. Yet, it is precisely this secret for which he does not ask, or at least so much of the knowledge as is necessary to lead him into a higher life, to which the divine teacher intends to lead this disciple. For he means him to give up all dharmas except the one broad and vast rule of living consciously in the divine and acting from that consciousness. Therefore, after testing the completeness of his revolt from the ordinary standards of conduct, he proceeds to tell him much that has to do with the state of the soul, but nothing of any outward rule of action. He must be equal in soul, abandon the desire of the fruits of works, rise above his intellectual notions of sin and virtue, live and act in yoga with a mind in samadhi, firmly fixed, that is to say, in the divine alone. Arjuna is not satisfied. He wishes to know how the change to this state will affect the outward action of the man, what result it will have on his speech, his movements, his state, what difference it will make in this acting, living human being. Krishna persists merely in enlarging upon the ideas he has already brought forward on the soul state behind the action, not on the action itself. It is the fixed anchoring of the intelligence in a state of desireless equality that is the one thing needed. Arjuna breaks out impatiently, for here is no rule of conduct such as he sought, but rather, as it seems to him, the negation of all action. If thou, he is quoting now, chapter 3, verse 1, 2. Okay? If thou holdest the intelligence to be greater than action, why then dost thou appoint me to an action terrible in its nature? Thou bewilderest my understanding with a mingled word. Speak one thing decisively by which I can attain to what is the best. It is always the pragmatic man who has no value for metaphysical thought or for the inner life except when they help him to his one demand, a dharma, a law of life in the world, or, if need be, of leaving the world. For that too is a decisive action which he can understand. But to live and act in the world, yet be above it, this is a mingled and confusing word, the sense of which he has no patience to grasp. So, we will discuss it, but basically what is being said here is that there are problems in the physical world which cannot be solved at that level. That's exactly the problem in our level also. So the problem can be solved only by going to the next level. I'll give you 2-3 instances, it will become very clear. Okay? Take the problem of transplantation of organs. Okay? It creates all sorts of problems in the world. Okay? Take the problem of euthanasia. Yes. Does the doctor have the right to end the suffering of a patient? He has not given him life. In fact, there is a saying in our Indian languages that you have not given life. What right do you have to take life? So, in fact, the Hippocratic oath that the doctor has to take is that he will always see that life is prolonged.
Do no harm.
Yes. So, here is a problem. Euthanasia. You are actually, but your intention is good. But should you do it? There is no solution in the physical world. There is no solution.
There's no right or wrong.
Yes, you can't decide between right and wrong. But you can go to the next level of consciousness, the solution will be there. I'll tell you how. Okay? My uncle is dying and I am suffering like hell. Okay? And there are 2 possibilities even in euthanasia. The uncle himself says, please end my suffering. Remove all the supporting instrumentation and I will pass away peacefully. Or I am unable to see his suffering. He is not saying anything. But I am saying that I can't bear to see his suffering. Please end his suffering. So there are 2 aspects to euthanasia also. Now, the doctor is unable to, if he is really a thinking man, he will not be able to solve the problem. Because if he does it, he is a criminal in law. And if he doesn't, he is prolonging the suffering in the physical world. So what is he to do? So now, I approach mother. Mother is at a higher level of consciousness. She can solve the problem. And how will she solve the problem? She will see not the suffering, but she will see the soul, which I can't see at my level. So she will see the soul, and if the soul says that I have had enough experience in the world, it is now time for me to pass on, then she will see that death occurs quickly. It's a blessing. Okay? But if she sees that the soul has still some work left to be done, she will revive the man. So she can solve the problem from that level. We can never solve the problem at our level. So Arjuna's problem cannot be solved at his level. He's saying, please solve it at my level. I want a rule of law. Krishna says, no. You have to go to another level of consciousness. So he starts speaking about soul. He starts speaking about the attitude he has to take. And Krishna is puzzled. Arjuna is puzzled. He doesn't know what to do. This is the gist of the paragraph. Okay? It's a very interesting thing. Okay? I give you only one example. Okay, there are many other examples also which we can think of. There are so many problems in the physical world which we cannot solve satisfactorily.
At that level.
Yeah. At the physical level, the dualities exist. Okay, so we have the problem also of capital punishment. Okay, suppose a person has committed a crime. The law of justice says that he has done something heinous and he has to be, capital punishment applies to him. He has to be hanged. But what about the law of love and compassion? Give him another chance. Let him reform himself. So, this is the problem. Dualities are, at the physical level, dualities cannot be solved.
But this is exactly what we see on the earth.
Yes.
We see these groups pleading for understanding and sympathy and let him live.
Yeah.
And the other ones, he's murdered someone else, kill him.
Yes.
So how does Mother solve this?
This is a problem that you cannot solve at this level. It will be solved by her according to the individual problem. She will see each one individually and see. See, in America and India, capital punishment still is operative.
It's still operating.
It's still operative in India and we are the biggest democracies in the world.
Yes.
But in Europe they have said no capital punishment. So they have solved the problem in one way, and we are seeing that as far as possible we will not apply capital punishment. But sometimes if a serial killer is there and you release him into the society, he is going to create more. So it's a problem that is solved in another way. Eliminate him from society permanently. If you put him in jail, he might escape. So these are problems which cannot be solved very easily at this level. That's exactly what this paragraph is telling us. Okay? So we'll go through and see if we can win. But this is the gist of the thing. Yet, it is precisely this secret for which he does not ask. The secret which he is not asking. So, or at least so much of the knowledge as is necessary to lead him to a higher life, to which the divine teacher intends to lead this disciple. So, Sri Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you are at a level of consciousness where you will not be able to solve your problem. So, you will be able to solve the problem when you rise to another level of consciousness. So, he is telling him about samatha and all these things too. But Arjuna is confused. I am asking for a practical solution and you are giving me a theoretical solution. How is that possible? Okay, so the teacher intends to lead this disciple, for he means him to give up all dharmas except the one broad and vast rule of living consciously in the divine. You are living consciously in your body-mind life and your ego. You will never be able to solve the problem. But live in you raise your consciousness to the divine level, you will solve the problem. You will know what to do. Okay? And in each case, it is different. In each case, it is different. Huh? It's very interesting. I'll give you it's not that the same law applies every time. In Arjuna's case, he is asked to continue the work that he was doing. Okay? He is asked, no. You are a Kshatriya and you have to continue the work that you were doing. Take Sri Aurobido's case. Okay? He was engaged in the freedom movement in India. So, he didn't want to leave, but he was put into jail. Okay? And his problem is now, should I give up that activity or should I not? But the divine tells him and he obeys. He says, no, this work you are not to do. Give up this work and go to another work. So, individually, each one will be guided according to his nature and the circumstances. There is no one truth for all these things. As I told you, mother will say to one person, okay, let him die. But to another person she will say, no, let him live. So it's individual solution, which is, there is no blanket one solution for all these problems. You can't say euthanasia is right And you can't say euthanasia is wrong. Okay? So, it depends on the individual and the circumstances. So, therefore, after testing the completeness of his revolt from the ordinary standards of conduct, he proceeds to tell him much that has to do with the state of the soul, but nothing of any outward rule of action. Clear, right? He must be equal in soul, abandon the desire of the fruits of work, rise above his intellectual notions of sin and virtue, live and act in yoga with a mind in samadhi, firmly fixed, that is to say, in the divine alone. In other words, the solution to his problem and many problems in the world is rise to the next level. If you are in the same level, you will never find a solution. Okay? So, he must be equal in soul. Equal in soul, equality, equanimity. Equality is a little, it can be even physical, but equanimity is psychological. So, you have to be absolutely calm in spirit. Then, equal in soul. Abandon the desire for the fruits of work. Nishkama karma. Do desireless action. Okay? Rise above intellectual notions of what is right and wrong, what is sin and virtue. Because, as we discussed earlier, sin can also be committed by those who are in a higher level of consciousness. Our scriptures are full of such interesting cases. Okay? So, two examples I will give you. One was when Ram kills Sugriva's brother Vali, he does it by hiding behind a tree. Okay? So, that's not fair warfare. It's not fair. It's unfair. But when you are at a higher level of consciousness, you can commit a sin with a clear conscience. Or the other case is when Sri Krishna himself tells Arjuna to shoot and kill Karna when he is repairing his chariot which is stuck in the mud. This is not done in normal warfare. This is wrong. So, sin and virtue are ideas which are practical at the physical level, but not at the spiritual level. So, that's what he's saying. Rise above his intellectual notions of sin and virtue. Okay? Live and act in yoga with a mind in samadhi. Don't have all sorts of thoughts crossing your samadhi. Dhi is the mind, sama. Absolutely calm, quiet, no movement. The good, bad, this, that. Just calm, quiet. No judgment at all. Only witness consciousness. Okay? So that's a samadhi. Firmly fixed, that is to say, in the divine alone. Arjuna is not satisfied. He wishes to know how the change to this state will affect the outward action of the man. What result it will have on his speech, his movements, his state. What difference it will make in this acting, living human being. Now, this is a very interesting question. Mother says very clearly, if you want to change conditions in the world, change yourself. Now, I had a lot of problem with this. Okay? If I change myself, things will change in the physical world. How to explain this? The thing is that when I am looking at the world in a particular way, okay, at a lower level of consciousness, the problem exists for me. But when I rise to another level of consciousness, change my view of things, I will start looking at the outward events which have not changed in a different way. My problem is solved. That is what is meant by rising to another level of consciousness. You will start seeing things in a different way. Your problem in the physical world is because you are seeing things not in the right way. So if you change yourself internally, your problem will be solved because you are seeing the things in the right way. That is what is meant by this.
And how does that change things in the world?
It doesn't. But you have solved your problem.
Okay, got it.
You have solved your problem. Things in the world can be changed only by rising to the highest level. Again, we come back to the Superman. Right. Then you have the power to do that. Okay. So, I'll give you a very interesting example also of this. Okay. So, how things can be seen in a different way. One day, I had taken my cycle and put it inside the house. Okay, but the bell got stolen. So I wrote to mother that the bell on my cycle has got stolen and I need a replacement. So mother said, yes, you can have the replacement, but you should have been more careful. Now, I started thinking at that time, how could I have been more careful than this? I have put it inside the house. How can I be more careful than this? Later on, I understood that your state of consciousness affects the things that you use and affects your way of looking at things in the world. If my state of consciousness was right, that bell would never have been stolen. So this is what is meant by changing yourself inward. And circumstances in the world will change. It's a very interesting thing. Okay? So, this is what they say. See here. He wishes to know how the change in this state will affect the outward action of the man. What result it will have on his speech, his movements, his state. What difference it will make in this acting, living human being. How can that change? Okay, the physical world. Krishna persists merely in enlarging upon the ideas he has already brought forward on the soul state behind the action, not on the action itself. It is the fixed anchoring of the intelligence in a state of desireless equality that is the one thing needed. So, now in the Gita, how will he solve the problem? The problem will be solved because he will go to a level of consciousness where he will be advised by the divine, do the act or don't do the act. We don't know but here Krishna is advising him to continue the act because the oppositions isn't falsehood. So you have to continue to destroy them. Okay? It's very interesting because in 1965 in India, I'm giving another example, an interesting example. In 1965, India had to go to, there was an attack from China as well as Pakistan. Okay? And it was a double attack. And India then took action on the Western Front and they started attacking Lahore. And they were in control of Lahore. All the international flights were asking permission from the Indian authorities to land. Okay? And mother said, continue the war on the Western Front. But we didn't have the courage to do that. So here is mother asking you to continue the war. Because that's the truth. But we are thinking, oh, what will the other nations say? We will be the aggressor. We will be wrong. We are going to war. We are wrong. No, we won't do it. So that's why the problem continued for 75 years. Now we are on the cusp of almost solving the problem.
Yeah, almost.
If you are following the latest developments, you will see that huge changes are coming. Okay, so Arjuna is not satisfied. He wishes, that we saw. Krishna persists merely in enlarging upon the ideas he has already brought forward on the soul state behind the action, not on the action itself. What is the solution? It's a fixed anchoring of the intelligence in a state of desireless equality. That is the one thing needed. Arjuna breaks out impatiently, for here is no rule of conduct such as he sought, but rather, as it seems to him, the negation of all action. If thou holdest the intelligence to be greater than action, why then dost thou appoint me to an action terrible in its nature? Thou bewilderest my understanding with a mingled word. Speak one thing decisively by which I can attain to what is the best. It is always the pragmatic man who has no value for metaphysical thought or for the inner life except when they help him to his one demand, a dharma, a law of life in the world, or if need be, of leaving the world. So that also is a solution. That's the ascetic solution, the Buddhistic solution. Yes, the problem is insoluble in the physical world. Leave it. Solve your problem individually. Sri Aurobindo is not satisfied with solving the problem individually. He wants to solve the problem collectively. That's why he has to go to the supermind to be able to get the power to change things in the physical world. The yogi is not solving the problem in the physical world. He is solving his problem individually. He is escaping the problem. But Srivananda wants a collective solution. He wants to change things in the physical world. Can you do that with the spiritual consciousness? No. Can you do that with the supramental consciousness? Yes. That's the thing. Okay? Or if need be, of leaving the world. See how he has included that also. For that too is a decisive action which you can understand. If you ask me to leave all things and go away, I can understand. But you are asking me to continue to fight. How can that be possible? But to live and act in the world, yet be above it. This is a mingled and confusing word, the sense of which he has no patience to grasp. Okay?
Thank you, Ram.
It's a very interesting discussion.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Namaste all.